Jessica Chen's hands shook as she hid in the small kitchen area of the big airplane. She kept seeing the moment over and over in her mind. Just 2 days ago, on the flight from San Francisco to New York, she had made the biggest mistake of her career. The first-class cabin had been full that day. Jessica remembered feeling tired, but still trying to keep a smile on her face. When the tall man in seat 2 asked for champagne, she had poured it carefully into the crystal glass. Then the plane hit a small air pocket. The champagne flew out of her hand and splashed all over the man's expensive white shirt and laptop. "I am so sorry, sir," she had said, grabbing napkins. "Let me help you clean that up." The man had been nice about it. "Don't worry. These things happen," he said with a soft voice and slight accent. Another passenger across the aisle had looked shocked. "Do you know who that is?" the woman whispered loudly. "That's Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google." Jessica hadn't recognized him. She had seen his face before on news websites but never up close. She had made it worse by saying, "Google? Oh, the search engine company." The whole cabin had gone quiet. Someone in the back rows had filmed everything on their phone. By that night, the video was everywhere. People had given it funny names like Google this, CEO gets soaked, and flight attendant doesn't search for Google boss. Jessica's mistake had been seen by millions of people. Late-night TV hosts made jokes about it. News websites wrote stories with titles like "Flight Attendant Humiliates Tech Giant." Now, Jessica sat in her small apartment, staring at her phone. She had turned off all her social media apps, but messages from friends and family kept coming. "Saw you on the news. Owned. Is that really you with Sundar Pichai? Called my mom to tell her my friend is famous now." None of them understood how serious this was for her. The airline had called her yesterday. Her boss had used words like company image and high-profile customers and pending review. They had told her to take 2 weeks off work while they decided what to do. 15 years of perfect service. 15 years of helping passengers, dealing with difficult people, working holidays, and flying through storms. 15 years might all be over because of one spilled drink and one famous person she didn't recognize. Jessica's phone rang again. It was her mother. "Everyone in the neighborhood has seen it," her mother said when Jessica answered. "Mrs. Lee from the grocery store asked if you were looking for a new job yet." "Mom, please," Jessica said. "I can't talk about this right now." After hanging up, Jessica walked to her window. Outside, people were going about their normal lives. No one looking up at her apartment would know that the woman inside had become internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Her phone buzzed with an email alert. It was from the airline's HR department. Subject line: "Meeting request. Incident review." Jessica's stomach tightened. This was it. They were going to fire her. 15 years of her life poured away, just like that spilled champagne. 3 days after the champagne spill, Jessica sat on her couch eating instant noodles for dinner. She hadn't left her apartment since the video went viral. Even ordering groceries felt risky. What if the delivery person recognized her? Her laptop pinged with a new email. Jessica sighed and clicked on it, expecting another message from her worried friends, or maybe something worse from internet trolls. Those had started coming in yesterday, mean messages from strangers telling her she should be fired or worse. The subject line read, "Regarding the flight incident." The sender's email address ended with @google.com. Jessica's noodles fell from her chopsticks back into the bowl. Google? Was the company going to sue her? Maybe they wanted money for the damaged laptop. Her hands shook as she clicked to open the email. "Dear Ms. Chen," it began. "My name is Preya Sharma, Executive Assistant to Sundar Pichai. Mr. Pichai would like to speak with you personally about the recent incident on your flight. Would you be available for a 15-minute video call tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Time?" Jessica read the email 3 times. This had to be fake. Someone was playing a cruel joke. But what if it was real? What if Sundar Pichai, one of the most powerful tech leaders in the world, actually wanted to talk to her? Would he yell at her? Demand she be fired? Or maybe it was worse. Maybe he wanted to record her apology to post online. Jessica called her best friend, Maria. "It has to be real," Maria said after hearing about the email. "Look at the email address. It's from Google's actual domain. And it's not asking for money or personal information. I think you should do it." "What would I even say to him?" Jessica asked. Sorry I didn't know who you were and ruined your expensive shirt. Just be honest, Maria said. What's the worst that could happen? Jessica thought about that question all night. The worst? She could become even more famous for all the wrong reasons. But she was already internet famous, and she was probably going to lose her job anyway. The next morning, she replied to the email, I would be available for a call. Thank you. 5 minutes later, she got a reply with a video call link. The rest of the day went by slowly. Jessica cleaned her small apartment 3 times. She tried on 5 different outfits before choosing a simple blue button-up shirt. Professional, but not too fancy. She put on light makeup and fixed her hair, then unfixed it and fixed it again. At 4:55 p.m., she sat at her desk and stared at her computer screen. Her heart was beating so fast she could feel it in her throat. At exactly 5:00 p.m., she clicked the link. The screen showed connecting. For a few seconds, then a face appeared. It was him. Sundar Pichai, sitting in what looked like a home office. He wore a simple gray t-shirt, not the fancy clothes she had expected. Behind him, Jessica could see bookshelves and family photos. Ms. Chen, he said with a small smile, thank you for joining me today. Jessica tried to speak, but no words came out. She cleared her throat and tried again. Mr. Pichai, she managed to say, I'm so sorry about your shirt and your laptop. What happened next would change everything. Please call me Sundar, he said. His voice was calm and friendly, nothing like the angry boss Jessica had imagined. I wanted to talk to you directly, he continued. I've seen what's happening online. The video, the comments, all of it. Jessica felt her face grow hot with shame. I'm so sorry, she said again. I should have been more careful with the drinks, and I should have known who you were. Sundar shook his head. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. You have nothing to apologize for. Jessica blinked in surprise. But I spilled champagne all over you and your computer. It was an accident, Sundar said. The plane hit a bump, and about not recognizing me, he smiled. That was actually refreshing. Refreshing? Jessica asked, confused. Ms. Chen. Jessica, please, she said. Jessica, Sundar continued. Do you know how many people pretend to know me just because of my job? They act like we're old friends when we've never met. But you treated me like any other passenger. That's how it should be. Jessica didn't know what to say. This was not how she expected this call to go. But the internet is being very unkind to you, Sundar said. His face looked serious now. And I heard your airline put you on leave. Jessica nodded. They're doing an incident review, but I think they've already decided to let me go. That's not right, Sundar said. He leaned closer to the camera. I've already called your airline's CEO. We had a good talk this morning. Jessica's mouth fell open. You called my boss's boss? Sundar laughed. Something like that. I told him it was just an accident, and that you handled it very professionally. He agreed that putting you on leave was an overreaction. Tears filled Jessica's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. There's one more thing, Sundar said. The online hate. The messages you're getting. The way people are treating you. He sighed. This is part of a bigger problem. When something goes viral, people forget there's a real person at the center of it. Jessica wiped her eyes. Yeah, I never thought about that before. When I saw viral videos, I just laughed or shared them. I never thought about how the people in them felt. Exactly, Sundar said. And I think we, tech companies like Google, need to do better. We need to think about how our platforms affect real people like you. They talked for a few more minutes. Sundar asked about her 15 years as a flight attendant. Jessica told him some of her favorite stories, the baby she helped deliver on a flight to Tokyo, the time she talked a scared child through bad turbulence, the marriage proposal she helped a passenger set up. You clearly love your job, Sundar said. I do, Jessica said. That's why this has been so hard. As they were about to end the call, Sundar said, I'm going to make a statement about what happened. Is that okay with you? What kind of statement? Jessica asked, suddenly nervous again. Just the truth, Sundar said. That accidents happen, that you did nothing wrong, and that the internet needs to be kinder. After they said goodbye, Jessica sat at her desk for a long time, and that really happened. Did the CDO of Google really just defend her? Her phone rang. It was her airline's HR department. "Jessica, we'd like you to come back to work," the HR manager said. "Your review is complete." Jessica smiled. "When do I start?" 2 days later, Jessica was sitting in her kitchen eating breakfast when her phone started buzzing nonstop. Message after message came in from friends, family, and even old classmates she hadn't talked to in years. "Have you seen it?" they all asked. "Have you seen what Sundar Pichai posted?" Jessica quickly opened her social media app. At the top of her feed was a long post from Sundar Pichai. It had already been shared thousands of times and had over 1 million likes. Her hands shook as she began to read. "Last week, during a flight attendant accidentally spilled a drink on me when the plane hit turbulence," the post began. A video of this minor accident went viral, and the flight attendant has faced harassment and nearly lost her job because of it. Jessica continued reading, her toast forgotten on her plate. "I want to be clear. The flight attendant did nothing wrong. Accidents happen to everyone. What's troubling is how quickly a small moment can become a big problem for someone just doing their job." Sundar's post went on to talk about internet culture and how people are too quick to judge and make fun of others. He wrote about how companies like Google need to think more about how their platforms can hurt real people. "In a world where mistakes are filmed and shared globally in seconds, we need to remember our shared humanity," he wrote at the end. "Be kind. You never know when you might be the one who spills the drink." Jessica read the post 3 times. She couldn't believe that one of the most powerful people in tech was defending her to the whole world. The responses to Sundar's posts were mixed. Most people praised him for being kind and understanding. They called him a real leader and a class act. Some people even apologized for sharing the video or making jokes about Jessica. But not everyone was happy. Some people called it a PR move and said Google was just trying to look good. Others said Sundar was being too soft and that Jessica should have been more careful. Jessica's phone rang. It was her boss, Captain Roberts. "I'm guessing you've seen the post," he said when she answered. "Yes," Jessica said. "I still can't believe he did that." "Well, it's causing quite a stir here at headquarters," Captain Roberts said. "The CEO called a meeting with all the department heads this morning. They're talking about changing our social media policy and how we handle these kinds of situations in the future." "Is that good or bad?" Jessica asked. "Good for employees, I think," Captain Roberts said. "But that's not why I called. I wanted to let you know about your schedule. You're coming back on Monday, right?" "Yes, sir," Jessica said. "We put you on the New York to Los Angeles route for now," he said. "Domestic, not international. Just for a few weeks while things calm down." Jessica frowned. She usually worked international flights. Paris, Tokyo, Sydney. Those were the best routes, with the best pay. Domestic flights were often given to newer staff. "Is this a punishment?" she asked. Captain Roberts sighed. "Not from me, but some of the higher-ups think it might be better if you're not serving our high-profile international passengers right now, just until this whole thing blows over." After they hung up, Jessica stared out her window. She had her job back, which was good, and Sundar Pichai had stood up for her, which was amazing. But it seemed like her life was still not going back to normal anytime soon. Monday morning came too quickly. Jessica stood in front of her mirror in her airline uniform, adjusting her scarf and checking her hair. She had not worn this uniform in almost 2 weeks. It felt strange now, like it belonged to a different person. "You can do this," she told herself. "It's just another day at work." But it wasn't just another day, and she knew it. Everyone at the airport would know who she was. The Google girl, the flight attendant who couldn't recognize Sundar Pichai. Jessica took a deep breath and headed to the airport. As she walked through the staff entrance, she felt eyes on her. 2 baggage handlers stopped talking when they saw her. A group of gate agents looked her way and whispered to each other. "Hey, Jessica." It was Miguel, another flight attendant. He walked over and gave her a hug. "Good to have you back." "Thanks," Jessica said. "Is it weird? Do people keep talking about it?" Miguel shrugged. "It was big news for a few days. But you know how it is, there's always some new drama, and after Pichai's post, a lot of people feel bad for laughing at you." Jessica smiled, feeling a little better, but her relief didn't last long. When she got to the pre-flight meeting, the lead flight attendant, Diane, barely looked at her. Jessica, you'll be working the main cabin today, sections C and D. Jessica frowned. She was usually assigned to first class or business class. Section C and D was the middle of the plane, the least desirable section with the most demanding passengers. Is there a problem? Diane asked when Jessica didn't move. No, no problem, Jessica said quickly. She knew better than to complain. The flight to Los Angeles was full. As Jessica helped passengers find their seats and put away their bags, she noticed many of them looking at her for a little too long. Some took out their phones when they saw her, and Jessica wondered if they were taking her picture or recording her. "You're the one from the video, right?" a teenage boy asked as she helped his mother put a suitcase in the overhead bin. "Eric, don't be rude," his mother said, looking embarrassed. "It's okay," Jessica said, though it wasn't. "Yes, that was me." "Cool," the boy said. "You're famous now." Famous was not how Jessica would describe it. During the drink service, Jessica's hands shook slightly as she poured sodas and handed out snacks. She kept thinking about the champagne spill and wondering if someone was filming her now, waiting for her to make another mistake. "You look familiar," an older man said as she gave him a coffee. "Were you on TV?" "Something like that," Jessica said politely. By the time the flight landed in Los Angeles, Jessica was exhausted. Not from the physical work, she was used to that, but from the constant feeling of being watched and recognized. As the passengers left the plane, Diane came up to her. "The crew bus leaves in 20 minutes, she said. "Don't be late." Jessica nodded. The crew would stay overnight in LA and fly back to New York tomorrow. In the quiet of the empty plane, Jessica sat down in a passenger seat for a moment. She had survived her first day back. It hadn't been great, but it could have been worse. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Jessica had expected it to be from the airline, maybe a schedule change or a company update. Instead, she saw an email address ending in @google.com. It was from Preya Sharma, Sundar Pichai's assistant, again. The subject line read, "Opportunity to discuss." Jessica stared at her phone. What did Google want with her now? Jessica sat on her hotel bed in Los Angeles and opened the email from Google. "Dear Ms. Chen," it read. "Mr. Pichai mentioned your situation during a recent meeting about workplace culture and public image. Our team is starting a new project about digital ethics and how viral content affects real people. We would like to speak with you about a possible role in this project. Are you available for a video call tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Time?" Jessica read the email 3 times. Google wanted to talk to her about a job. This had to be a mistake. She called Maria right away. "They probably want you to tell your story," Maria said after hearing about the email. "You know, for a company video or something." "But why me?" Jessica asked. "I'm just a flight attendant." "You're not just anything," Maria said firmly. "Your story touched a lot of people. Even Sundar Pichai. That means something." Jessica wasn't sure, but she replied to the email saying she could join the call. The next morning, instead of exploring Los Angeles during her layover like she usually did, Jessica stayed in her hotel room. At exactly 10 a.m., she joined the video call. 3 people were waiting for her. One was Priya, Sundar's assistant, who she recognized from their emails. The others introduced themselves as Raj Kumar, head of Google's new digital ethics initiative, and Lisa Chen, no relation, from Google's HR department. "Thank you for joining us, Ms. Chen," Raj said. "We've been following your story with great interest." "I still don't understand why," Jessica said honestly. Lisa smiled. "Your experience highlights exactly the kind of issues our new initiative is trying to address. How a moment caught on camera can change someone's life. How the internet can be both a powerful tool and a dangerous weapon." Raj nodded. "After Mr. Pichai's post about your situation, we received thousands of comments from people sharing similar experiences. People who had gone viral for small mistakes or awkward moments. People who lost jobs or received threats because of online videos. We want to do better," Lisa said. "And we think you can help us." Jessica blinked in surprise. "Me? How?" "We'd like to offer you a consulting position," Raj explained. "You would share your experience with our team, help us understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of viral content, and give feedback on the tools we're developing to make the internet a safer, kinder place." Jessica was speechless. This was not what she had expected at all. The position would last 6 months. Lisa added. We would work around your flight schedule, and of course, you would be compensated for your time. She named an amount that made Jessica's eyes widen. It was more than she made in 3 months as a flight attendant. I don't know what to say, Jessica said. I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just someone who spilled a drink. Sometimes the most powerful insights come from personal experience, not expertise, Rab said kindly. Will you consider it? Jessica thought about her last flight, about the whispers and stares, about being moved to the middle section of the plane after 15 years of serving first class. I'll do it, she said. But I need to keep my job at the airline too. Flying is still important to me. Of course, Lisa said. We can schedule around your flights. We'll send over the paperwork today. After the call ended, Jessica looked out her hotel window at the Los Angeles skyline. One spilled drink had nearly ruined her career. And now, somehow, that same spilled drink was opening a door she never could have imagined. She picked up her phone to call the airline. She would need to request some schedule changes. 3 months later, Jessica walked into Google's New York office for the 4th time that month. The security guard at the front desk smiled and waved her through. Morning, Ms. Chen. They're waiting for you in the usual room. Jessica still couldn't believe this was her life now. She worked 3 days a week as a flight attendant and 2 days as a consultant for Google's digital ethics initiative. The airline had been surprisingly flexible once they realized that having an employee working with Google was good for their image. Today, Jessica was meeting with a team of engineers and designers who were developing new tools to help people affected by viral videos. She had become an important voice in these meetings, sharing her perspective as someone who had lived through the experience. The problem isn't just the video itself, Jessica explained to the team as they showed her their latest ideas. It's what happens afterward. The comments, the messages, the way people treat you in real life. A young engineer named Kevin nodded. We're thinking about adding a feature that would remind people to think before they comment on viral content. Maybe a small pop-up that says something like, remember, there's a real person in this video. That's good, Jessica said. But what about the person in the video? What do they need? This was why Google valued Jessica's input. She asked questions no one else thought to ask. As the meeting continued, Jessica's phone buzzed with a text from her boss at the airline. Schedule change next week. Can you take the NYC to Chicago route on Thursday? Jessica smiled. Things at the airline had improved too. After the first few awkward weeks, her coworkers had mostly stopped treating her differently. She was back to working better routes, including some international flights. Passengers still sometimes recognized her, but it happened less often now. After the meeting, Raj pulled Jessica aside. We've been invited to speak at a conference next month, he said. It's about social media and mental health. Would you be interested in joining the panel? Jessica hesitated. Consulting behind the scenes was one thing. Speaking in public about her experience was something else entirely. I don't know, she said. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Think about it, Rab said. Your story is powerful. It could help a lot of people who are going through similar situations. On her way home, Jessica thought about how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been hiding in her apartment, afraid to go outside because of a viral video. Now, people wanted to hear her speak about that experience. That night, she found herself watching other viral videos online. But instead of laughing at the people in them like she might have done before, she wondered about their stories. What happened to them after the cameras stopped? Did they lose their jobs? Did strangers recognize them on the street? She clicked on a recent video of a teacher who had accidentally left a funny filter on during a virtual class. The comments were mostly laughing at her. Jessica felt a pang of sympathy. Before she could think too much about it, she started typing a comment. As someone who went viral for a mistake at work, I know how this feels. Be kind. This could be you someday. She hit send, then closed her laptop. Maybe Raj was right. Maybe her story could help others. Maybe that was the silver lining in all of this, turning her worst moment into something that might make the internet a little bit kinder. Jessica picked up her phone and texted Raj. I'll do it. I'll speak at the conference. 1 year had passed since the day Jessica spilled champagne on Sundar Pichai. So much had changed in that year that sometimes Jessica felt like she was living someone else's life. Today, she sat in economy class on a flight to Tokyo. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't wearing her flight attendant uniform. Instead, she was a passenger, traveling to speak at a digital ethics conference. Google was paying for her trip, but they couldn't get her a first-class ticket because the flight was full. Jessica didn't mind sitting in economy. It felt good to just relax and let someone else serve the drinks for a change. As she flipped through a magazine, a voice came over the airplane speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding our premium and first-class passengers." Jessica glanced up out of habit, and that's when she saw him, Sundar Pichai, walking down the jetway with a small travel bag. He was dressed simply in jeans and a dark blue sweater, looking just like a normal person instead of one of the most powerful tech leaders in the world. Jessica watched as he walked through the first-class cabin. Would he remember her? It had been a year, and he probably met thousands of people every month. 20 minutes later, after all the first-class and business-class passengers were seated, economy passengers began boarding. As Jessica walked through first class to get to her seat, she kept her eyes down. She didn't want to seem like she was staring. But as she passed row 2, someone said, "Miss Chen." Jessica looked up. Sundar Pichai was smiling at her from his seat. "Mr. Pichai," she said, surprised that he recognized her. "Hello. Are you working this flight?" he asked. "No, I'm actually going to the Tokyo Digital Ethics Conference," she said. "I'm speaking about my experience and the work we've been doing." Sundar's face lit up. "That's wonderful. I'm going to the same conference. I'm giving the opening talk tomorrow morning." A flight attendant appeared beside them. "I'm sorry, but we need to keep the aisle clear for boarding." "Of course," Jessica said. She smiled at Sundar. "See you in Tokyo." The flight was long. About halfway through, the plane hit some turbulence. Jessica was reading a book when she heard a small crash and a voice saying, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." She looked up to see a young male flight attendant who had spilled a drink on a passenger's tray. The dark liquid had splashed onto the passenger's sleeve. "It's just water," the passenger said kindly. "No harm done." The flight attendant looked so upset that Jessica felt a strong wave of sympathy. She remembered exactly how that felt. As the young man passed by her seat with his cart, Jessica touched his arm. "Hey," she said. "Don't worry about the spill. These things happen." The flight attendant gave her a grateful smile. "Thanks, I'm still pretty new at this." When the plane finally landed in Tokyo, Jessica waited for most other passengers to leave before she got up. As she walked through the now empty first-class cabin, she saw Sundar still sitting in his seat, working on his laptop. He looked up as she passed. "Miss Chen," he called. "Would you like to share a car to the hotel? I think we're both staying at the conference center." Jessica smiled. "That would be nice, thank you." As they walked together through the airport, Sundar asked, "So, what will you talk about at the conference?" Jessica thought for a moment. "I'm going to talk about how one small moment can change everything. How going viral can be the worst thing that happens to you, and sometimes, eventually, one of the best." Sundar nodded. "I look forward to hearing it." 1 year ago, she had spilled champagne on him. Today, they were colleagues walking through an airport together. Life was strange sometimes.